So, welcome to the Leadership Passport, the podcast where we dive into the journeys, challenges, and insights of school and education leaders from around the world. I'm delighted to introduce my guest today, Miss Louise Dawson. So, Louise is the founder and CEO of Louise Dawson Professional and Management Development Training in Dubai, in the UAE, making waves in education and school development. With a wealth of experience across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, Louise leads a consultancy that empowers schools with leadership strategies, as well as owns a child skill training center that sets young minds back on track. Passionate about neuro-affirming social models of education, she transforms schools across the Middle East. As an educator, trainer, and advocate for inclusion, she works with top organizations like governments, yes, IOE, UCL, and nasen to champion diversity, while inspiring schools, families, and communities to build a more inclusive future for all children. Welcome, Louise.
Thank you very much. That was a bit of a mouthful.
We got there, Mo. We got there.
You did. I'm very impressed.
So I hear that you're a brilliant cook and baker, and that you were born in England, married in Vegas, had children in Hong Kong, divorced in Dubai, and looking forward to find out where you're going to die.
Yeah, that's one of my quotes.
Hopefully,
set me up to look really crazy right at the beginning. I love it.
Well, hopefully not looking forward to it too much. Hopefully that's sometime well off into the future.
No, I hope so. Yeah, a few more years would be great.
Very good. So look, let's just start off with a different question. If your leadership style were a song or a movie, what would it be and why?
Oh, crikey. Well, my name's Louise, so I guess Thelma and Louise would be a good one. Crazy decisions and crazy road trips and lots of U-turns and lots of junctions and lots of jumping off cliffs to see where I land, I think.
Fantastic. Very good. So I want to talk a little bit to start with about your leadership journey and then the work that you do. And I'm wondering if you can identify a defining moment in your leadership journey, whether that's the work you do now or previously as a headhunter and, all over the world.
Yeah, so I think there's different times of my life where that has happened. So leaving school with no qualifications, that was fairly defining because I had to find my own path and my own way and try and work out what I was good at. And I kind of fell into a career, which whilst I feel like I was quite good at it, it wasn't my dream or my passion. So it was something I did. The next defining point would be moving overseas and understanding that the world is bigger than just my little pocket of Norfolk in England. Then there's the area of, having children and especially having children with autism. That was very defining and very frustrating for a good five to 10 years. But then coming to terms with that, changing career into education and teaching, that was a huge point. And then, of course, leaving schools after 20 something years. I'm making myself sound so old. I am really old. And I think having started work at 14, 15, obviously there's a few more years in there than other people might have. So, yes, it does add up to 40 years. And yes, I am 55. So it is, it's a much longer time than other people might have experienced. But then setting up the business. So I did have a business in Hong Kong before going into education. So the business wasn't scary for me to move out into my own business. But it is scary moving into education in your own business, and especially around neurodiversity, and starting up in a country which is quite expensive in terms of licensing and property and housing and rent of space, etc. So there's different. I think I would define my life as a series of pivots. I pivot here, and pivot there, and pivot there. But I absolutely love what I do now, and I think so in terms of, again, 55, but now is the defining point for me.
Yeah, fantastic. And can you identify like an aha moment? You talked about like moving across different cultures, the UK, Hong Kong, UAE, very different cultures and countries. Is there a particular aha moment that stands out for you in across those spaces?
I don't think so. Not in terms of education. I think there's aha moments in terms of, I was identified autistic ADHD at 50. So clearly I've known all my life that I'm a little bit different. But having that paperwork at 50 was huge for me in terms of me and my life and understanding who I am, what I need and how to be successful for myself and my own passion and my own dreams. In education, I think the aha moment was when I started, I was a learning assistant. So I was a one-to-one learning assistant in a classroom, when my children were under 10. And I went through an Ofsted inspection and they started to talk about the ability, attainment and progress. And that was my huge aha moment in terms of whether it's maths, English, speech and language, occupational therapy, communication, relationships, everything is pivoted around that baseline and making a next step forward. It doesn't have to be an A star, but it is about moving forward. And for me, that's kind of how I live my life now. It's all about what's next, not where are we going, not where the end journey is, what's the destination, but the journey and what. And so that was huge for me. I remember that inspection clearly.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm wondering, what's the toughest leadership, or could be any, what's the toughest challenge that you've faced and how did you navigate it?
I think for me, being a very big speaker about diversity and acceptance and tolerance, and I'm not a big A star person. I don't think, everyone has to aim for that. I just think we should aim for happiness. And when we have happiness and passion, then we move forward. I think that my biggest challenge is that I have autism and I have a social communication barrier. And I spend a lot of time thinking they didn't understand me. I'll leave meetings and they didn't understand what my point was. And that's been a consistent challenge through friendships, relationships, being employed in schools, being in my own company. Even now, I think, why didn't my accountant understand what I was talking about? Or why didn't that client do what I said they needed to do? And I know it's around my own. Is it around my own communication? It could be around their communication, but I take a lot of responsibility for that. And so it is a real challenge. And I don't think it is just autistic people. I do think that lots of people have those challenges of, I know where I'm going and I know how to get there. And why are you not just coming with me? And I think that's consistent, whether I was a learning assistant, whether I was a teacher, a Senko, a head of inclusion, or a senior leader. Why didn't you just follow? What did I do? Yeah, but I'm a very reflective thinker. I'm a very reflective person. I think I've had to be. And so that's a challenge for me, and it always has been, and it probably always will be. But I don't think it's just the autism. I think it is human nature that we don't always understand where we're all going.
I was just about to say, as you were listening, as I was listening to your comments, then you sound very, very reflective as you think back on the communication and how you're perceived, and how others are perceiving you, and all of that. And many people overlook that. Many people, I think, don't possess that level of just reflection and self-awareness, which certainly makes communication challenging.
One of the biggest parts of neurodiversity is around rejection sensitivity. And I think when you have experienced challenges with communication, with relationships, with all different aspects of life, and you're frightened of so we're not frightened of rejection, but rejection happens and we don't want it to happen. We want, there's the biggest myth around autism and diversity is that we don't want friends because we prefer to sit on our own, but we prefer to sit on our own because it's exhausting not to sit on our own. So that whole piece around reflectiveness, I think, comes from a fear of rejection, not fear as I'm frightened no one's going to like me. I don't care if no one likes me. It's around, actually, I like you, and so I want you to like me. It's a very different twist on it. But I do think there's that in it.
Great. What's one mistake that's shaped your leadership approach over the years?
Going too quickly for everybody else. Okay, so I know what I want. Part of the ADHD is I want it yesterday, and I have a 24-hour window before I've forgotten that is one of my priorities. So unless it's on my list, it's not happening, or it might be a priority for me today, but it's no longer a priority for me tomorrow. And if other people are going more slowly, which a lot of people do because that's the right speed to go. So if I go too quickly or I move, so I talk about pivoting, I pivot a lot. And so today's priority might be, this and getting this right for you. And so why is not everybody else here tomorrow? People will say to me tomorrow, how was it with Kevin? And I will say, what did I do with Kevin? Because I've moved on from it. And I think that's quite hard for other people to follow. So again, the most difficult thing is pivoting too quickly, going too quickly, wanting results too quickly. And when I was involved in starting a new school here, and it was sand and bricks and concrete and foundation, I wanted all the policies in place, and I wanted everybody to be on the same page, and I wanted all the marketing to be done, and I wanted my team to be built, and going at that speed isn't possible. So I think I learned a lot from that about being strategic, but taking my time. So I have learned to take my time, and I think that was my biggest challenge when it comes to leadership.
A leadership practice or habit that's changed the game for you?
So I think one of the things that changed for me was when I understood that all of those positive practices I needed to put in for children, the positive praise, the positive reinforcement, the slow steps, the one thing at a time, and understanding it as a leader of a team, that I also needed to do that with adults. I think I went into leadership expecting, well, you're adults. You should deal with it. You should deal with criticism. You should deal with pressure. You're here to do a job. A lady that I was working with in 2012, she said, Louise, you have very high expectations of yourself, and you expect everybody else to have the same high expectations of themselves. And I kind of went away thinking, well, why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they have high expectations of themselves? And so understanding that everyone is on a different stage of their journey, and that the only way you can make progress for a team, is to have high expectation, but to take them with you through connection, through belonging, through positive praise, through positive reinforcement. I have never got anyone to do anything by telling them off, by saying you haven't rather than you have. There's a business technique where you are positive and then you throw in the negative and then you end on a positive, the sandwich. There's different terms for that sandwich. And I do that. And I found that did change the way that people came into the team. But I'm a big, I remember people's birthdays in my team, not at home. I remember, if people are getting married, I remember to give people time. In my team, they get time off. If they are going to the dentist in the morning, they don't come in the afternoon. Take the time, relax, because tomorrow you'll give me double. Whereas if you come in feeling poorly today, you'll feel poorly tomorrow. I will get nothing from you. So that whole kindness, connection, consideration, a huge part of how I now lead a team, which I didn't at the beginning.
Yeah, and you were talking before about having high expectations for yourself and high expectations for others. And, talking to a lot of leaders who have those high expectations sometimes is also coupled with imposter syndrome. And it makes decision-making really tough for a lot of people who have imposter syndrome. How do you deal with that, if that exists for you?
Oh, it does, definitely. I think it exists for everyone. And if anyone says it doesn't, then I don't think they're being 100% honest. When I started that new school, I had the huge luxury of building a team from nothing. And we went from zero. And then when I left, I had 35 in the team. So in 4 years, we went from zero in the inclusion team, 0 to 35. And I could pick every single one of those. And when I picked every single one of those, they all knew something or did something better than me. And I said that at interview, and I said that when I recruited them. So and I think I still do that. I believe everyone around me is not necessarily better than me, because I think we're all equal, but has different skills, different strengths. So I deal with imposter syndrome by surrounding myself with people who do know. I'm not an expert. I'm a specialist. I know my stuff. I'm strong and I'm confident with my stuff. But I know, for example, if I was talking about dyslexia, I know who I would go to for that question. If I wanted to know about corporate leadership, I know who I would go to for that question. And I'm not frightened of asking, and I'm not frightened of saying, I don't know, let's work it out together. And I think that's what makes me a successful business owner and successful senior leader in school.
Fantastic. So
Sort of cast their mind to the future now. What's one piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring school or education leader?
Focus on happiness. It's really cliche, and post-COVID, everybody is talking about it. You cannot make progress as a person, as a parent, as a student, if you are frightened or in fear or wanting to run away or just anxious about your environment. And so happiness for me is more about belonging and connection. That's why I'm an inclusionist. It's including every single person, regardless of where they are at in their life and their challenges. So if you want the best from people, ask them what they need and make sure. There's a phrase here in the UAE that I hear a lot, which is take time to drink with the Arabs. If you want the best from the people around you, take time to know them and understand them. As a leader, I would meet my whole team every morning, not to give them jobs to do, but to say, good morning, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Who's got a headache? Who needs to have lunch off? Whose duty do I need to cover in order for you to be happy? And it would take 5 minutes, because when you do that routinely, everybody knows why we're there. So they turn up, oh, Louise, could you do my duty? Yes. Can you do mine tomorrow? Because I'm probably going to have a headache tomorrow. And that collegiate collaboration is vital. And it's about being visible. Be visible. That's it. That's my top tip. Be visible, have connection.
You work with a lot of school leaders and boards, heads of school around the place, including me and our school. And if you could change one thing about international school or education leaders, what would it be?
Apart from removing the school fees. I don't think I would change much, because everyone that comes out is passionate about children. Majority of people are passionate about children. What would I change? I think it is, remember that these are children. Okay, these are children with a huge future in front of us. We have no knowledge of what it's like to go through COVID at 5 or at 10, or to go through lockdown at 15. Give kids a break. Have high expectation of them, but remove negativity. There you go. That's my one thing. Remove negativity. It has no place when trying to develop children, young minds, or adults. It has no place anywhere in the world. Be kind. If you've got something negative to say it in a kind way. There you go.
Fantastic. All right. So now a couple of quick questions to wrap things up. What is your favorite book?
Grapes of Wrath. Don't ask me to recall a chorus story. No, great. But I like things like Paul Dix and When Adults Change, Everything Changes. I like nearly everything I read is factual and educational based. I'm very single-minded about, if I look at every book that I've got here, it's all about education. It's all about neuroscience and neurology. But in terms of fiction, it would definitely be Grapes of Wrath. Life story, right?
What's one thing that you do daily that helps you to lead better?
Meet with my team. Okay, whether that's on WhatsApp, whether that's face-to-face, I know what's going on in their lives, and I give them space to be themselves.
Who's a leader, past or present, that you admire?
School leader or world leader?
Anyone. Your pick.
I know the one that's in my mind that I'm not going to say. I worked in one school with a lady called Gemma Thornley, who is now the principal of Arbor, and she's in a different school to where we were. But I took a lot of learning from her, because she got me instantly, and she was able to mentor and coach me in a way that nobody else has ever done. Yeah.
Brilliant. And finally, best advice you've ever received?
Shut up. And that's probably the truth. Louise, now's not the time. And I think that's the response to the ADHD, because I'm like, well, we can do that and we can do that now. Louise, no. So no, shut up's always. That's really, really authentic and really, really honest.
It's straight to the point, isn't it?
Yes. It sums up my career. Shut up. That goes back right to the beginning opening sequence when you said, I'm looking forward to where I die. It will be under someone saying, will you shut up?
Well, very good. Well, on that note, Louise, I think there's nothing more to say after that. So, look, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, Kevin. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, etc. Drop a comment below to let me know anything you'd like covered in upcoming episodes or suggestions for future guests.
You can also connect with me on Instagram and LinkedIn.